Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Yellow Square podcast. You may be wondering why you're hearing my voice. Unfortunately, Ned can't join us on this week's episode, so you've just got me. We chatted off recording, and he still absolutely wanted an episode to go out this week. So it's just going to be me, just going to be talking about the Plymouth game, plus a couple of other bits and pieces emerging from the club this week. But we really just wanted to kind of get something out and get our thoughts out there on what was another, to be honest, ultimately encouraging week for the club at the start of the brand new season. Obviously, coming off the back of a 0-0 draw against Plymouth Argyle, and I'll kind of go into that in a minute. But also, same week where unfortunately we went out of the Carabao Cup on penalties against Stevenage. I was at that game. It was another relatively interesting game. Stevenage did pretty well to shut us down. We started the game well with Bayo getting the goal from about the 5th minute, but then we just couldn't really match the tempo, and I think that was kind of the main concern for me coming into this week's coming into the Plymouth game versus what I saw at Stevenage. Obviously, we started the season so well against QPR. But I think, as we spoke, Ned and I, at the start of the week, after that game, just not wanting to kind of get too ahead of ourselves because QPR are pretty bad that day. Obviously, they've gone and won. Of course, it's a championship this weekend, but I was a bit concerned after the Stevenage game as to was it a bit of a flash in the pan in terms of the intensity and the pressure that we put teams under after the disappointment in midweek. But it turns out no. I was really impressed, really encouraged by the performance yesterday. Yes, it was 0-0, but I think lots of people have been talking about this. There's been lots going on social media and coming out of the club that it really does look like there's a very clearly defined style of play. I really like the way that Valerian has got the boys playing. We're starting games on the front foot. We've got lots of different options going forward. The wing backs are providing a real outlet and real threat, and I think we're good at mixing up how we sort of break the lines. We can either go long through Hoot, or we can play the ball through the middle through Loser, Deli Bashiru, or we can go up to Bayo, and he can act as that little bit of a springboard. So, yeah. I think overall a pretty encouraging display. I think the main concern at the moment is kind of twofold. Distribution at the back with Bachmann. Obviously is a major question mark over him. We've known for a while about his issues with the ball at his feet. Seriously, no question marks over his shot stopping, in my personal opinion. I think he proved that yesterday with some excellent saves, but he did let up a couple of opportunities. But for me, and as I said in last week's episode, if we're going to play this style of football and it's going to be as entertaining as it has been to date, I'm prepared to give up an opportunity here and there by playing out the back. Yesterday was too much. I think everyone would probably agree with me on that one. There was some very sloppy play from Bachmann, and he's going to have to hold his head up and hold his hands up, and acknowledge that. But he's being asked to learn on the job. I think the club has clearly got no designs on replacing him with the new deal. So I think we should just absolutely sort of see how it goes for the next couple of weeks. Hopefully he'll settle down. And I don't think he needs to do anything clever because, in my opinion, looking at the defence now, Hoot and Porteous are really solid, very capable of being on the ball, playing it out themselves. I think Porteous was solid. He did much more sort of defensive work, and I was really impressed with him. But it was really Hoot yesterday that stood out and shone, playing out from the back. Not only was he extremely solid defensively, he made some excellent covering tackles, particularly in the second half, but his distribution, long raking crossfield passes out onto the right hand side, also balls over the top or bending it down the left hand side for Martins to run onto in the first half, or little incisive passes. I thought he really shone, and is someone who I really think can really flourish in this system. So real signs of encouragement from the back. And I think it's worth acknowledging that they did defend well. And given the chances that we have let up, I think we're the only side in the championship now that hasn't conceded a goal yet this season. So there's something in that. What really impressed me yesterday, though, was I think the wing backs, Morris and Andrews, both really continuing to develop, looking very much at home. I think I was a bit nervous coming into the season about Morris and Andrews. I was worried that they might be found out a little bit just through a lack of experience and age, um, as well as some of the physicality aspects. Morris is quite slight, and I think teams might focus on him. And I think we saw that a little bit yesterday with Whittaker, but Morris was excellent. He was right up there in terms of my sort of votes for man of the match. They're just very solid. They're both continuing to develop. My only concern with these two guys at the moment is their end product. They're getting into good positions. I just think that end product sometimes they let themselves down a little bit, which is a shame. But I think personally that is just age and what you can see, particularly with Andrews. I think his end product is coming from him rushing a little bit because he wants to make an impact. He wants to be the difference, which is exactly the kind of player that I think we should be all getting behind. So those two boys, massive thumbs up to them, and I really hope they continue to be given a chance. But we'll have to sort of wait out. I think sort of 5 to 10 games into the league season is kind of the point where we should be looking if they're offering us everything we need. But so far, massive thumbs up, and I thought those boys were real sort of strong performers. Midfield wise, again, I thought it was pretty good. Sierralta, solid. He looks much more comfortable on the ball than I can remember him being as a centre back at the club. Some good little incisive passes, read the game pretty well, dropped into some nice spaces. But I think for me, the key question mark I've got is how we will do against better sides. Yes, Plymouth are a good team, and I probably should have led off the episode by saying that they did really well. I thought they were hard to break down. Um, they created chances, and they were obviously supported by a real strong backing. So full credit to those guys that they did their job very well. But against the likes of Leicester, Southampton, the stronger teams at the top of the table, I would worry about him being caught on the ball a little bit more than someone like Livermore, who I mean, I might as well talk about him now. I was just sort of thinking that Livermore looked a bit calmer on the ball. He was able to get out of some tighter spaces, and for me, I think there is a natural transition that takes place between Livermore and Sierralta fairly soon, where Livermore starts to play a bit more. Um, but I wouldn't be changing things right now. TDB, Delibashiru is quickly becoming, for me, one of the emerging players of the season. I think we all knew he had quality in him. There were just question marks over his injury record, but this season it looks like he's had a great preseason, and he is attacking games. I think he transitions the ball excellently. He looks good going forward. He doesn't look afraid to make a pass or play the ball out of a tight space, but also his defensive work, I think, is excellent. There was a number of times in the first half yesterday where he won the ball back high up the pitch, some good interceptions, and I think just generally athletically, he's all over the pitch at the moment. So massive thumbs up to him. He was one of my players of the match yesterday, and Loser. It's just another good performance. I think it's going to be very difficult to kind of break down every single one of his performances because I think he's always going to be one of the top performers in the team. He had a great strike from it felt about 30 yards yesterday, which clipped the outside of the post. On another day that nestles in because the keeper was nowhere near it. And he just looks kind of effortless at this level, and I really do believe he's flourishing in that leadership role that Valerian has given him. And that kind of brings us on to the front three, which I think is the part yesterday which let us down, that final third. Martins, I'm going to get Martins out of the way. He looked the most threatening of the starting 11. The ball was coming through him a lot. He looks good on that left hand side, cutting in, with Morris being that outlet to him on the left. I think he looks like one of those players that looks determined to score every time he gets the ball, which is brilliant, but I think that sometimes clouds his judgment a little bit. So going forward might be something that we need to look at. But he looked like the most threatening. It's the other two, Sema and Bayo, where I now start to have a bit of question marks over their places in the team. And that feels really weird for saying, because particularly for Sema, he was quiet yesterday. He's been playing out on the right hand side. I think Valerian wants him to cut in, but he's extremely one-footed, as we know. But his work rate so far has always kept him in the side, and he just looks like someone who's so determined to do the best he can and work as hard as he can for the club. And I think when they switched flanks, Sema and Martins halfway through the first half, it nullified Martins a bit. So my question marks remain over Sema. He might not fit into this system, especially when we think about the subs that came on. Maybe he transitions to a left wing back role. He might start to be a bit more effective out there. We know he can perform in that role, and in this really attacking Ismail system, with his delivery and pace, he might really work in that role. Notwithstanding Morris's continued excellent performances, or Jamal Lewis coming into the side at some point. And that brings us on to Bayo, which is he's a real interesting one, because I've seen loads of very good things from him, in my opinion, this season. He looks like he's had a good pre-season. He looks more athletic. He looks hungrier. I just think he's really inconsistent. He looks like the kind of player that needs to score a goal early in a game, and that settles him really nicely. His link-up play was decent, but there were times where his touch let him down. He had that excellent left-footed volley over his shoulder in the first half, which just whistled past the post. Which, you know, he did it last season against Rotherham. He sort of that volley. He looks like a player that will get one or two chances a game. And it really depends on which Bayo turns up as to whether or not they go in. He missed that Giltez chance in the second half after a sort of hell of a ball from Asprilla, wasn't it? Real switch ball back behind the defence, and Plymouth had no idea what was going on. But again, Bayo made the run that made that possible. He made some good ball runs into the channel in the first half. He's working really hard, and he's pressing very well at the moment. He's clearly doing exactly what Ismail wants him to do. And I think that is why the messaging from the club in midweek, where they're talking about they are trying to sign a number 9, they're making no bones about it, but it's not a replacement for Bayo, it's a competitor, which I think says where the club sees Bayo at the moment. I desperately want him to do well. There's something for me about Bayo where I'm a bit of a proponent of his at the moment. Now, he may drop off. We might not see him bag a goal for 5-6 games, and if that does happen, then I see changes happening pretty swiftly, because we can't afford to create chances and not score them, obviously. But I really do see him scoring maybe another 1 or 2 goals in the next 4 or 5 games. And if he does that, then you got to look at sticking with him. So he's got a real question mark over his head at the moment as to kind of exactly where he fits. I'm neither kind of in the side, no questions asked, or get rid. I'm kind of uncertain. I'd love to have Ned with me right now so I can bounce some ideas off him. But that's kind of where I'm sat with him. So yeah, bit of an odd one. But I think the changes yesterday, looking at the subs, were really interesting. Chakvetadze, Asprilla, Livermore, Kone, all coming on at the same time. Loved that from Ismail. Decisive changes early in the second half to try and unlock and change something, and I really think they did actually. Plymouth started pretty well. They were getting some good chances on the counter, but I think that those changes really showed actually quite how much depth we've got in the squad at the moment. Chakvetadze again was lively. He was dropping deep, but I didn't think it was detrimental to him. He was able to bring the ball away from danger, spray it around, and as you saw, the width that was happening was opening up. I think it was all to do with Chakvetadze being able to find those passes. So again, really impressed with him. He might be the person that I think comes in for Sema out on that right hand side or that left hand side. but Asprilla. Oh yes. I think he's the most likely change now into that sort of starting 11 that was named at the start of the season. He just looked a cut above, in my opinion. I know it's the first time we'd seen him, but I think he offers something slightly different to Martins in that he has that ability to find a pass real incisive from depth. Um, some excellent little passes inside, perfectly weighted, able to carry the ball, get out of tight positions and open up the play again. I think he fits better into that system. So it could be between him and Chakvetadze for that for that position, replacing Sema, I think. Livermore and Kone, again, they came on, they were pretty good. Livermore, as I said, he looked calm, got out of some tight positions and some lovely incisive passes from him going forward. Kone, I think, still has time to develop. He's very immature in terms of his sort of professional footballing career, as is pretty well known. He's pretty good going forward. He's good at carrying the ball, but I think his final ball is lacking. And I think that just comes with a bit of time and experience. And I think he's one of those guys that probably needs a really good game this season, either a full 90 minutes or make a real impact from the bench to settle him down and make him think, you know what, no, I can do this. I can play at this level. Um, so I don't think he's ready for the starting 11 yet, but he looked pretty good coming on. And Kane came on late on, so nothing really to talk about him, in my opinion. But overall, I think a real strong, positive performance. We put out on socials yesterday that I think now we have a clear style of play that we can all get behind. We know how Ismail wants to play, and it is entertaining to watch. Loads of options all over the pitch. It's attacking. I think we just need a couple of those chances to go in, and then I think everyone is going to really get behind it. There's plenty of positives. I'm really excited to see how we go away now against Stoke next week. So yeah, I think overall it's a overwhelmingly positive feeling at the start of the season, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Question marks obviously remain over distribution, with Bachmann and also our ability to convert chances at the other end, but I think that is going to be the case when we're learning such a specific style of play, and you've got players who are clearly hungry at the other end of the pitch to want to make an impression. I think they just need to settle down, and I think that will come with time. And that kind of leads more nicely to just some other bits and pieces. We had the fans forum in the week. There was lots of interesting comments that came out of it, and I think it really shows where the club is right now. Duxbury was talking about patience. He was talking about certain games last year where you couldn't see an identity or a style of play, all really pointing to the idea. I think that they're really wanting to get behind Ismail, and I think it also it points to the idea that has always been the case in under the Pozzos, where I think as long as they're seeing progress off the pitch, supported by results on the pitch, that more often than not they're prepared to give the manager time. And I think if we can maintain this for 10, 15 games, I think Ismail then really stands a good chance of progressing and really starting to mould an identity. And I think everything will settle down at the club a little bit, because it's still up in the air, isn't it? But yeah, some really interesting points coming out from Duxbury. Also some comments I know from Ben Manga as well, but some interesting references to Elton John and Luther Blissett, already suggesting that Sir Elton is actually pretty heavily involved already. We know he's already in the ear of Scott all the time. But it looks like he's currently in France, and then when he heads back to the UK, I think he's going to be even more prominent, and we might see a few appearances with him at the ground, which would be brilliant, because I hope the fans can serenade him with your song, which would be absolutely brilliant. But interestingly, Luther Blissett set to take a more prominent role within the club. I'm wondering whether this is some kind of ambassadorial role, or working with the youth or the academy sides. There's talking about really instilling that Watford DNA, the Watford way of playing, really trying to focus on the culture and the heritage, which I think overall the club has been pretty good with in the last couple of years. So that'd be really interesting to see is how you could get Luther Blissett involved a bit more, because he's someone who cares about the club. That goes without saying, but he's so good in the local community, and I think that needs to be absolutely harnessed much more. So yeah, overall, I've got a real buoyant sense of optimism surrounding the club right now, and I'm really looking forward to see where this team goes. I'm expecting a couple of signings, maybe not this week, but as we get towards the end of the window. I know we've been linked with some big target forwards to help support Bayo. Some great highlights reels going on around the route there, but I'm trying not to get too excited. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. It was only a short little one. Hopefully we'll be back to normal next week. Ned will be joining us again. But yeah, love to hear your thoughts, particularly on where the squad is at, any changes you'd make. Is the style of play what you want to hear? Please drop a comment or feel free to get in touch with us on all our socials. But yeah, until next time, until after the Stoke game, have a great week, everyone. And yeah, come on, you Hornets.